We're having technical glitches if you haven't figured it out already. Ain't technology great? So hopefully that's working. If anybody can hear me, please kind of write in that you can, so we know what's going on. Should I stop? Yes, no? Huh?
It's still not working.
I'm not sure what to do. Does that mean I stop?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Wonder why.
I don't know.
Technical difficulties, in case anybody can hear me.
No, this is what's going on. It was good, and then it stopped. So I don't know.
Let's see what happens.
Okay, so they hear me. So
Can you guys hear? Everybody hear? I know we're having technical problems, but if you can hear.
I think they can hear.
Okay.
Talk about what you were doing again. Maybe.
I just basically kind of smudged this whole area in, scumbled it, as if you will. And I wasn't really concerned. I ran out of paint. I mixed up. I don't ever care if these colors are all one clean, flat color. It's not going to end up as one clean, flat color. So there's no sense in me worrying about it at this point. Before I get back into it, the next thing I'm going to do is establish a little bit of a dark foreground. All right. And for that, I'll grab the asphaltum. I think I'll pick up sap green. I just basically, it is in the green range. Kind of I never like to go as dark as I can go, so I will either throw a little Naples and I wasn't some other color. I ran out of paint. I mixed up. I don't ever care if these colors are all one clean, flat color. It's not going to end up. So I throw a little bit flat color. Oh, so let's see what that is. That's pretty good about it at this point. And I want to establish this dark before I get back into it. The next thing I'm going to do. And so what I'm going to do is establish a little bit of a dark foreground. I'm going to push a dark. For that, I'll grab the asphaltum. I think I'll pick up sap green. I remember all the time in my mind, basically kind of I never like to go as dark as I can go, so I pretty much throw a little minutes. So therefore, some other color, I will lay this in much quicker than if I were sitting all one on location. It's not going to end up with a little bit flat color. So let's see what that is. That's pretty good. And I want to establish this dark before I get same as I established. The next thing I'm going to do. And so what I'm going to do is the same thing. Same establish a little bit of a dark foreground. A little bit more careful. I'm going to push a dark. For that, I'll grab the asphaltum. I think I'll pick up sap green. I remember all the time in my mind, basically kind of I never like to go as dark as I can go, so I pretty much throw a little more technical. So therefore, some other color, I will lay this in much quicker than if I were sitting all one on location. I've got to move on this. I'm going to.
Well, go ahead and just talk about what you're doing.
I don't know if they can hear me. I don't know if anybody can hear me. Hopefully you guys can. I'm just going to talk like you can hear me. I'm going to keep going the same way, guys. I'm going to keep mixing in that kind of mixture and working. I don't want it too warm and I don't want it too green at this point. I'm just kind of trying to be approximate and approximately the shape of what I see. I'm going to be breaking that up. There's going to be other areas that are going on in there. Again, this is that mixture of umber or asphaltum, sap green, a little bit of ochre. I don't want to worry about these edges too much right now because I know I'm going to be painting some of the background. So it doesn't really matter if I hit them exactly right at this point because I'll be messing them up anyway.
Okay, that's not working.
So now I've done pretty much down below what I did up above. I've laid in, so I've got two basic values right now. I can actually add a third if I want to, adding maybe a little bit more blue and the brown, the umber. Will come in a little bit in here, maybe a little bit down in here, up in here, a little bit more blue. Okay. I don't want to spend too long. I have to assume at some point when I'm working this quickly that I'm correct. All right. I'm going to go to the background again. I want to get everything set up so we can spend most of my time right here. This is the jewel of the piece. So background, light, first of all, very light. Same color in the brush, threw some more blue, got a little bit of violet. So it's going kind of a gray violet. It's too dark right now, I can tell. It's going to pop out of that background too much if I make it that dark. So value control at this point, very, very important. I'm guessing now. I don't like the color. The value feels pretty good. I don't like the color. I threw some more blue and white into it, maybe just a touch more alizarin. Let's try it again. Okay, I can't sit and worry too much, and I'm not going to know how it's working until I get these kind of semi-darks back in here. And that's why I didn't care, if you guys recall, I did not care whether I had that exact color correct whenever I remix it. It's almost sometimes better if it's not, because then you are a little bit truer to what nature is, because nature isn't just leaves aren't just a color. Trees aren't just a color. So we're trying to keep everything bogged back as the whole concept of this is to make this the prominent and this subordinate. So when they look at it, they see light space that is something. It's not just sky, for example. Generally, that's what most people are going to think when they first look at it. And hopefully what they will do is they will discover that, no, that's a bunch of trees. That's a whole hillside there. So I'm scuffing up a little bit here. Push, pull, different strokes every time. If you can make different strokes, it's going to feel better. You've used the same, if you just go boom every time, it gets very methodical, very mechanical. It is not like nature. Nature is not mechanical. It's not architectural. It's sporadic, so to speak. It's unexpected. So you can push a color concept a little bit more if you want to. The side of this pretty, because we're gonna show off the front of this old ruin. It's a ruined castle back in. We're gonna show that off with the dark kind of shadowy foliage that's back behind.
Okay.
Constantly remixing. I think I might be gotten a little too dark at this point, but we'll see in a second. And I knew I did. Okay, just add a little more white to it. We got it.
So Tom just wanted to know if the background is wet. He came in late, so
This, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is the initial canvas tone. The background is very wet. So I'm painting, it's accepting the color, and I know that I can soften it into that color. If I go too strong, by brushing it a little bit more, I can push it back into that color scheme. different facets of the brush. Sometimes doing this quickly works to your benefit. You notice I said sometimes, because it doesn't always work to your benefit. But it's not that unusual that it can actually help, because it forces you to put these marks down quickly and not overthink them. And sometimes overthinking can be one of the biggest problems that almost all artists do, is it can overthink, overanalyze. Okay, let's kind of scuff some tones back in here. I don't want to dwell too long, because I could easily spend an hour or so back in here. Don't want to. I haven't given myself that much time. But what I would do in a studio painting is I might build on an area like this for a day or so. I don't mean consistently for a day, but I mean work on it, work on some other areas, go back to it the next day, find some more areas that I can get into. So we're starting to get kind of, if I blur my eyes, I'm getting kind of the modeled look a little bit that I see in the image itself. And I actually like it when I have some of the colors are a little more violet and some are a little more blue. It can add richness. It can really add a richness. So it doesn't feel, like I said, it doesn't feel like it's exactly one color. The same with this. I'm going to mess this up a little bit too as we move back into it. But right now I'm getting a little bit more of a blue violet back in there. Just a little bit darker, not much. Oh, I like that color. Hopefully it'll work, because the color is really pretty. This is one of those things that you're hoping, oh my God, I hope it's right, because I like the way the color is really nice. And I know people that go, well, I really love the color, but actually it doesn't work. So in this case, I'm crossing my fingers that it works, because I do like the color, but I'm also experienced enough to know that if it doesn't, I will change it. Okay, let's not dwell too much longer on that. I could add a little bit up in here. Oh, I picked up a little green there. Doesn't hurt too much. Sometimes I like these big sweeping strokes like that. You just take your brush and go, clear. And if another color comes out, let it come out, fix it. Okay, let's leave that alone. Let's clean my brush a little bit here. Now let's kind of go into that blue area there. So I'm going to take the blue that I was working with, that radiant blue. I'm going to mix Naples yellow into it. So and maybe a little bit of white. I got to lighten it a little bit. I'm going to test this. I think it's too dark. It's not. Let's try it again. Oh yeah, it's a nice green. I'm just trying to green that up just a little bit. Whoops. See, I got too much. That's what happens when you got too much Naples. You see how it's popping? I don't want it to. So I took some more radiant blue back into it, which is going to bring it back into that color scheme. Move it down in here. So what we're doing is I'm going to even throw, for some reason I see it getting a little warmer, so I threw some ochre. Those are more radiant blue and a little more ochre. It's probably a little darker. But I want to stay with that value, that kind of bluish value. Okay, I just kind of stepped back for a moment just to see how it was feeling, and it felt okay. I can't say it felt really good. I can't say it felt wrong. I'm not far enough along. I didn't see where it was bothering me, and that's probably the best way of putting it. What I'm getting at is, if it doesn't bother you, and truthfully, you will get better with that in time, whether something bothers you or not early on. It's better if you can always distinguish that early on rather than later, because if it's later, then you probably spent a lot of time that you really didn't need to spend on some of this stuff. Okay, I don't want to go much further. I know I need more of it, but I've got that color right here. So if I do need it, I can come back to it. A little warmer. I'll pull out some individual trees later if we have time. That's kind of what this stuff does. That little, let me just pull out a little edge of a tree here and there. Right now we're dealing with masses. We're not dealing with the refinement and the detail. We're just dealing with the big, big masses. Okay, let's move down forward. Just want to get a little bit more in here before I do. Okay, let's start down into these areas where the bright, no, you know what? Before I do, let's go into the tree tops a little bit. It's going to be actually pretty similar to the color I just used. So I took the radiant blue, I took the sap green, and I'm going to take some Naples yellow, and maybe some ochre, because that's going pretty acidy of a green. And the ochre will kind of calm that down a little bit. And maybe a little bit more sap. Okay, let's just test right in here. Nope, darker. So that sap and ochre. Let's try it again. I like it better. A little more ochre. Just little treetops. Not going to put them all in right now. We're going to keep coming back. But I thought I'd get at least a start on it. And there's a big area. I'm going to bring some raw sienna into it. Right down here. And there's a bigger tree. See, it's a little too light. I want to sneak up on those lights. And so what I can do is I can use the color that's already down there, push this back into it a little bit. So it ends up being darker because the color down below is darker. So if I actually push this paint back into that color, it will darken. And that's why the more that I keep using this, the darker and the duller that paint is going to get. Because as I'm putting paint down, I'm also picking paint up. So it's getting a little dirtier, which is kind of fine for what I want right now. It sneaks down. Oh, it gets a nice ochre over there too. Right, I just put some raw sienna. It's pretty thick, actually. Actually it's pretty bright too. Maybe just fine, but right now it's standing out too much. And again, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep this in check, so to speak. So I'm going to clean that brush just a little bit, take that color, maybe bring a little bit of this yellow into it to green it up a little bit, and we're kind of put this mass. That's actually pretty good. That's almost the light color that I want. I kind of didn't want to start there, but let's go back and add some texture. Okay, a little texture in there. Then we got another light plane coming right here. And then another one right about in here. So I need to bring that dark down further. And then I'm going to take more green and a little bit of raw sienna in with that green. So I've darkened it a little bit. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of smudge this corner of kind of a little bit of a darker foliage type green in there. Okay, a little top to that tree. let's go back to that dark color I was using initially. The brown, the blue, if you recall, and the yellow ochre. Now, if you don't, I can use raw sienna instead of yellow ochre also. But what I want to do is just kind of clean this area up a little bit. A little too much blue. Actually, I want that about there. Just a little piece of it right in there, because there's a nice warm tree that's gonna, now let's get that tree in right now. That's just plain old raw sienna. Look at the thickness of that. I wasn't planning on that, but I like it. A little yellow into that raw sienna. So it brightens it up just a little bit. I'd rather be, like I said, in some respects, I'd rather be a little too dark right now. It's one of the most beautiful parts of Italy. We were there 2 or 3 times because my wife has relatives not far from here. And I think the first time we went, we didn't go to Ravello because we really didn't know about it. And a good friend of ours said, well, have you been to Ravello? So next time we went, we checked out Ravello. And we liked it so much, we ended up actually doing a workshop there. It's particularly up high. When you get up there, it's just spectacular, as you probably can see from this. It really is very, very impressive. Okay.
Bill Cook wants you to describe the laying brush.
The what?
The laying brush.
This brush? This is this. It's a basically, this is a 100% pure bristle. It's a, you can get it, there are a lot of different brands. I get it from Blick because it's generally where I get a lot of stuff, but I also get them from other places. They're around, the Blick brushes are around $7. This is a 1-inch. For me, it's a great utility, great starting utility brush. I don't do all my painting with it, obviously. I don't do it for figurative work, but it's a wonderful brush. I also very often will use this. So if you look at it, they're kind of similar. This is my rosemary. Well, I got to clean that up pretty good. If you take steel wool to that, it cleans up, goes right back to brand new. And I'll do that every so often. Obviously, I haven't done it recently. So we're going to kind of come in. We're going to come in with a little bit more of these trees. A little bit right on that down in here. It's little shrubs. Kind of want that shrubbery drifting off into shadow. And that's why you don't want to start too dark, because you do want to come in really light towards the end on the tree tops, because that's where the light's hit. Light is actually, let's talk about that. Light is coming from here. And the reason you can tell that, it's actually, I shouldn't say, it's actually coming from here, but from the back side. So it's just skimming the treetops. We're getting a little bit of light on the structure back in there, but not a lot. It's almost like an edge light, or a lot of people like to refer to it as rim light. I'm going to come right down in there. I'm going to kind of get that area right there. It's a little lighter. And I'll come in with darks and fix it if I need to. By the way, you guys, I lay in the lights like I know what the hell I'm doing, and come in at the end with darks to kind of refine it a little bit. But it's starting to shape up. We're starting to get, to me, I'm starting to get the feel that I want in here. I know I can't spend all our entire amount of time on that. So I'm trying to use my time wisely and put time into where it's going to be the most efficient. I know I want to spend, the last 40 minutes in here.
Wow.
And we may go a little over past the 1:30 because we had some technical glitches. So sorry, but I try and hold these to an hour and a half just because, I could paint all day, obviously, but sometimes I know that true paint aficionados could probably sit there like myself and watch but it's at some point it gets tedious, and it's just a matter of, and I hate for demonstrations in general to get too tedious and I don't want to say boring, but that's kind of what I mean. So, all right, let's start to get some of this stuff in. So at least we have a lay-in. I'm going to switch down to a number 10. And I think I'll grab this. I think I will use a flat. I was going to grab a filbert, kind of a rosemary flat, and kind of some value manipulation. We know that this is going to be warmer, more in the kind of cool earth tones. But I really have to hit that value right, the shadow value. So I'm going to start with the asphaltum, which when I add white to it, it has a lot of red in it. So I have to cool it off with some ultramarine, maybe some sienna. It looks like I'm kind of coming close. I'm not dark enough, I can tell right now. So let's see how that is. I want it darker. And just so you guys understand what I'm doing here is I am looking at how this value relates to this value. And I know that this is a lot lighter and I want it to come out pretty strong. So I want it, that feels a lot better. That feels like it's powerful enough. And that's my first guess. That's what you're doing always when you're picking colors and you're picking values. You're doing what I always like to call educated guesses. Educated because of experience, that's all. Not educated because I'm a lot smarter. I guarantee you there's many of you out there smarter than me. Darkened it. Want that edge to go a little darker as it goes behind. There's a little building, small little building right in front, and I want it to be a little darker there. So then we'll go back and we'll kind of get the rest of it in. And there is color and value manipulation within that. So I actually took some of that background blue, believe it or not, since I already have it mixed up. And we'll get, so it doesn't look too flat and boring. Okay, keep going. I'm going to try and leave about, whoop, I didn't leave the top of that. The top is about here. So I can wipe it off. Well, I'm not even going to do that. I'm just going to pretend like I meant that. And we'll go to this turret. They're slightly rounded. It's always helpful to kind of look at what you're painting and hopefully understand a little of what it is. So you're not just painting, not that you have to be 100% a slave to what it is you're painting, but it's really nice if you really understand it. Now, as that building in front, this little tiny building, it's a little darker. The front of it is. The side of it isn't, but the front of it is. So we'll go there. There's going to be the top, the roof. It almost looks like it might have been a cathedral. I just liked it, this kind of rugged element sticking up out of this kind of rugged terrain. It's cool. I'm off in that. I want it more in that range. I think maybe a little bit more brown in it. But again, these are your first shots. So if it's not right, I'll go back and fix it, hopefully. A lot of that has to do with what I said in the past, and that is you keep fixing till you don't see anything else to fix, and then you're done. So people always say, it's a question you get asked a lot. At least I've been asked it quite a bit. How do you know when you're done? And truthfully, it's not that easy to answer. But the simple answer is when you don't see anything else you have to do. If nothing is really jumping out at you and appearing wrong, chances are you're done. Now, when I say that, I mean drawing, I mean value, I mean all those different elements, not just, oh, the drawing looks good, so I'm happy. I mean, that's where you can deceive yourself. The drawing can look fine, but the values can be messed up. And a lot of times the values and the colors are the things that you kind of catch later. You may not catch them right off the bat. Big old, I'm using this kind of dirty brown, darkening it a little bit here and there, just to kind of create part of the ruin of this down in here, building back in here with almost the same color, and then very similar, but a little bit more ochre into it. There is a building, and I'm going to put it in right on the edge, right there, higher. Okay, we'll leave that there. I'm going to move this out a little further, and I'm going to get that background color in, bring it down. Okay, I want to be somewhat careful in here. It's architecture. When you get into architecture, your drawing, perspective, everything becomes much more important. So we got that. Let's lay a couple of the other buildings in. I'm not going to refine yet. I'm mixing up a new background color, you guys. I just spotted something that I kind of want to fix. I think I'm close right in here. Again, you don't have to be exact. Yeah, I am close. Not dark enough, but there we go. Bring a couple more strokes in. All right, roof looks pretty good. Got some nice darks back in there. I got some greens breaking in here. I can pull back in. You can do this, what I'm doing here, you can do all day long, truthfully. I'm going to set that brush down, pick up a smaller brush if I can. Let's say number 6. And I'm going to lay this white building in. Now, the white is in shadow. We know it's blue. We know it's going to be somewhat cool, but not tremendously cold. It's quite light. That might be a little bright. Let's try it again. I'm going to throw a little more ochre into that color. Let's try it again. A little too ochre, a little more blue. Okay, that's what we're living with.
So Betsy was talking about, she's always intrigued to see the reference for your demos. Can you talk a little bit about what you did in the beginning about the reference that you selected? And
yeah, I in the beginning, and I know we had some technical glitches, so I don't know if you guys heard it, or even if you tuned in a little late here. What I decided is I looked at this reference a few weeks ago, and I noticed it, and I thought, that'd be kind of interesting, but I'm not sure. And so I let it sit, which I often do. And then I looked at it again yesterday when I was kind of trying to make a final decision. What am I going to paint that's maybe a little bit different than what I've done? And then I went, oh, I got an idea. The light bulb went on, so to speak. And literally what my idea was to take everything and fog it way back and pronounce this, so that we're taking what's there and we're strengthening. And that's why I kind of called this whole demonstration dealing with potential. Because as you paint, I mean, and I believe this, period. I'm not even going to say this just about this subject. All subjects have potential. If you give it enough thought, enough time, and it might be a rearrangement, it might be value and color manipulation, but all subjects, I'm not getting the color I want. I want it warmer. So I threw some more Rossiana. That's a little too warm, but I'm going to live with that. Okay. The potential is what we're all dealing with when we do paintings. There are some paintings that you may have heard people say, oh, that paints itself. And I've had those paintings because everything is done for you. That's why I don't like when I'm teaching students and they're going to work in photography, I want it to be their photography, because you work from someone else's photography, generally they've already done some of the work. They've done some of the thought thinking. So why not get involved right at the beginning? So anything you guys have seen me do, with one exception, has all been from my own photographs. The only one that wasn't when I painted the gentleman from a black and white photo that I took when we were in Holland. Other than that, every other photo is something that I've shot while I've been painting on location. Painting the rooftops, by the way. Okay. Now I can break all that stuff up. I just want to get some tones in there right now, so it's not, that's good. It's kind of a gray, bit of a, remember one thing, and I know I've mentioned this many, many times, no one knows whether you're right or wrong. It has to appear correct. If it appears correct, that's really what matters. If you think about very loose paintings, they're perfect examples of that. So value manipulation, color manipulation, basic drawing. Your drawing can be a little off too. I don't want to give everybody the license. I hate to say that too much, because then everybody goes, "Oh, you don't have to draw." I know artists that say, "I don't like to do architecture because then I have to draw." It's all it means is you have to be a little more accurate. Okay. Now, I'm going to try and stay with this brush for a little bit. I'm going to paint the front of that wall. I've got about 40 minutes too, if I stay with the 1:30 deadline, but I'm probably going to go over, as I mentioned, because I know we had some glitches. I stopped and started a few times here. I don't know if you guys saw it. It's our wonderful technology, and which I know literally, basically nothing about. I can paint a picture. I can get email. I can do things, little tricks like that, but I don't know Photoshop. I don't know any of that, all that neat stuff that a lot of you probably know. And I don't necessarily envy you. I do wish I knew there's certain things from time to time that I wish I was a little bit more adept at and knew a little bit better. But truthfully, if I know too much, then I'll use it. I know people that literally get on that damn computer and they spend 8 hours, and then it's like, where the hell did the time go? And I mean, it's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. I don't, mainly because I don't know how. And I use that's a pretty acceptable excuse sometimes. If I were illustrating, however, if I were still working as an illustrator, I know for a fact I would learn everything that there is to know about all that stuff. But I quit illustrating long before the computer came into. It was just starting to take off. One of my students I recall, was moved to Seattle because he wanted to work with Microsoft, and I had never heard of Microsoft when he told me this. And I said, "Oh, good for you, Microsoft." Yeah. I didn't know what that was. He's probably retired now, and because this was back in the early 80s. Okay, I see darks. So you notice I'm switched over to small brush, and I'm pushing some of these darks. And I like the dark. It's a little green, so I mixed a little more alizarin into that. So what you can see is building darks into midtones. Or I'm building darks into midtones, I should say. And it's what I've said many times, and it's my preference. Not every artist does that. I like to work out of the middle, meaning I like to work midtones to darks and lights. Giving myself, I just feel like I'm in more control when I do that. Not every artist does that. One of the things that I've told people over the years that have taken workshops from other artists, and they, well, so-and-so told us this, and it's great, because I'm sure it works for them. When I started teaching, my goal was to teach what I thought at the time, and I kind of still do, is the easiest way to go about learning how to paint. Once you know that, and you get that down and you're comfortable with that, you can go a lot of different. You can start with your heavy darks and only go to lights. You can start with an eyeball and build a head out of it. I know guys that do it all different ways. So my goal has always been teach the easiest approach, the approach that people can learn probably more from, and then they can take it wherever they want. And that's what makes one artist different than another, truthfully. So don't ever feel like you're getting misinformation. If you take a workshop from someone and they tell you something and it contradicts other things that you have heard. Because what most people do is everyone likes, they give you what they have learned, what the thing, in other words, this is what I've developed. And basically that's what I'm doing. I'm giving you what I developed, not necessarily as the only way that I work, but is a way that I teach, simply due to the fact that I find it to be the easiest approach. It's the easiest to learn. It's the least frustrating. This is where you got to slow down and be accurate. All these kind of little things drive me crazy. Just like makes me sound like I hate accuracy. I don't. Actually, I appreciate the hell out of it. I love super tight and refined paintings. I love super loose and indicative paintings. And that's why I kind of work. I do a ton of experimentation in my own work when I'm working. Where when I finish a painting, I may pick something up and try something else. So I'm definitely not a slave to a subject matter or a slave to an approach. I'll try, watercolors. I'll try anything. Some I do better than others. Okay, so you can kind of see I'm getting into really starting to get these things kind of refined, and it's looking okay. But if I dwell on it too long, I'll have a beautiful finished area, and the rest of it will look like a bunch of super sloppy paint strokes. So let's move around a little bit on that. Let's get some other. I see some beautiful cools, almost the background color back in here. There. A little bit there. And then I see it get a little warmer as it goes up here. Kind of neat. So little tiny variations can make a world of difference in terms of the feeling that you end up with when you're all done. Particularly, like I said, this is the little jewel of the piece, is this part. This is all going to be hopefully indicated enough so it's believable. Now, there's light happening on the interior of a window right here, so I'm just going to pop that in. Okay. And the front part of this gets quite light and warm, so I can go back to my Naples. bring a little bit more warmth. I'm going to put my little finger down here. There. And it bumps out a little bit. And then there. Bumps out again. Goes behind a tree, so we'll sneak a tree in there. And then if I have to, that edge I want pretty sharp. And then we want it to soften a little bit right in here. And then I'm going to go to the front now, because I don't want to, and stay with that same color and a little bit of warmth. And we'll start right here. And then we'll go a little bolder, because that's how I see it. Again, potential. Use that word a couple times, but that's what I'm dealing with. I saw the potential. Sometimes you don't see it as I didn't immediately. Like I said, I've been looking at this one image for a few weeks, thinking it was neat, but not knowing how I could really make it into a painting that I would be satisfied with. So it wasn't really until yesterday that I kind of came up with the this pretty much concept. Kind of, you know what? For those of you that know, this whole image reminded me of something that I might see Corot paint. Oops. Painted a lot of these kinds of images. Okay, so it's starting to work. I've got this. Now we need to hit the real bright light. So I'm going to take this warm white. It'll probably work. I could have mixed it, but since I laid it out on my palette, and truthfully, when I laid it out, I wasn't even sure why I laid it out. I just grabbed the tube and said, I'm going to put this on. I'm going to be very careful. And we'll get the top. And then this is tricky. Okay, it's a little thick, a little too heavy-handed.
I just wanted to mention, Ray said that he thinks the greatest thing he learned from you and Belmont was not how to do a specific technique, which you've taught me a bunch of, but how to efficiently execute an image by breaking down its complicated parts into manageable bits.
That's it.
I thought that was
Great way of putting it, Ray.
yeah.
Excellent way of putting it. That's exactly right. You deal with the complexities when it's time. For example, let me state it this way. Let's say we're painting a patterned vase. Right in front of us, right? So I don't paint the pattern first and then try and put the vase. I try and paint the vase and then put the pattern on it, just like it was made. Think about that. The way a patterned vase is made. How is it made? It's the vase is made and then pattern is added to it. No different than building a house. Think about it. Got to lay a foundation. Can't put the toilet into a bathroom unless you got a bathroom to put it into. And you can quote me on that one. Now some subtle darker darks into that area. Because I hit the lights. And there's a beautiful dark window. I just caught it. I didn't see it earlier. It's right behind, and I've used my little liner here. Right about there. And not quite that dark, so I'm going to mix it into the others, and I can go in and add a little bit of what we call shadow detail. So it doesn't feel, it's starting to look aged, which I guess is the best way for me to state what I'm attempting to get it to look like. It doesn't feel just, it's a lot of little parts to this. much to what Ray was saying, there's a lot of little parts. So I'm hoping I have time to get them all in. I know I won't. I'll have time to get enough of them in to make it feel complete. Now that could be brightened up a lot more, I could tell right now. And if I have time, I absolutely will do it. I just saw it when I glanced back at it. Also, right here at this point, there's a lot of, this is the ruin. So I don't need a real perfectly clean brush to create this. Same with this. Come down here. And the wall back here. We're going to start up here. So we started to give a little structure to that wall. A little bit back on this side where the light's hitting. There, here. So it's kind of neat because you don't have to be real clean with your strokes. It's not like painting brand new architecture, which sometimes can be much more difficult and not very interesting to look at, truthfully, from a painting point of view. Nice to live in, but not nice to paint. Much more interesting to paint an old beat up shack. Okay, let's leave that alone for a little bit and move on to the background, because that needs a lot of work. Okay. I can do it. Oh, look, excuse me. I keep threatening to go to the background, and then I spot something else. I spotted these little turrets here. And I would put one here, one here, one here. Okay, let's leave it alone. I got them in the wrong spot. But see, you know that because you're looking at my reference. But if someone else walked in and didn't see the reference, they wouldn't know that. Okay, so let's go to that background again. Let's start building that up and making it more interesting. So I'm going to go to the ochre, the kind of green, and we're going to kind of bring a little bit more of the blue into it. A little bit more of it, not enough. A little bit more. And bouncing back and forth, picking some ochre up now and then. Just turn the old brush over. I've been using one side. I've got more mileage with paint. I got to step back. It's actually starting to work. Whew. You sound surprised? I'm not, because I know if I do maintain my values correctly, I can make it work. The question that I always have is, am I maintaining my values correctly? Only because I haven't had the opportunity to really stand back and look at this. So I have a basic light and I have a basic shadow. Now I'm building some deeper, wrong color, deeper colors into the shadows as they come forward up in here. So what that allows me to do is have a secondary shadow, a deep shadow and kind of a pale shadow. Step back. Okay. I'm going to bring a few of these probably too strong. But I'll show you what you do when they end up too strong. Just take a clean brush, begin to lose them. And they're there, but they're not as strong now. If you want them stronger, you go back and you hit them. So you can go back and forth with that kind of stuff. Now there's some houses, some buildings back in there, so we're going to at least indicate a little bit of those. A little bit of a smaller brush. Come in and indicate a few more trees. No, you can't get. You're not going to be able to get all the trees. Not in our time. Literally, if you wanted to give yourself an extra day or two on it, you literally could go back and just build and build and build until you get the trees. And it can be just beautiful by mixing different colors every time. Not mixing the same color. Okay, so let's go in and start to hit. And those buildings are going to be fogged back. They're not going to be as pronounced, say, as this building up here with its, I just looked at it as I said that, and I see a window. I don't like that. Let's do it again. It's better. And another window. Got those. This is where that little linear stuff at the end is just, you've got to have enough of it in there. Let me go to these houses up in here. Let's start right above this guy, right about here. I don't like it. It's too warm. So more white and more of the radiant blue and more white. And we'll try it again. Actually, I looked, instead of radiant, it looks like ultramarine would have probably worked better. That's okay. It still sits back there pretty good. I'm going to use some ultramarine and white and see if I can match that value. Because I like it. I think it's a colder blue and it tends to sit back there better. Then there's another one right about here that I'm going to hit. A little more blue in it. It was a little too white. There. Okay, another one over here, a little lower. A lot of buildings right in here. Just going to hit some shapes. 1, 2, 3. 4. Keep going. A little on the shadow side, and a little building off to the right. A little building back here. This is what I mean by the tedious stuff. This can get really boring. Boring to paint and boring to watch, both. So I like to do it really quick like this, and then go back and overlap some trees over it. Get a few more buildings. Let's put one right in here. I don't even know if it's there. And there's one up in here. And then a couple that are kind of coming in here. Okay, we're going to leave it like that for right now. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to hit kind of that blue violet where I need it. And I'm going to let some of the trees with that kind of blue violet overlap a little bit like this. See, once you have stuff like this in place, then if you need to put in the feeling of a vineyard below it or anything like that, you have a place to put it. That's why you put stuff like this in first. And then let's see if I can do it with this brush. I'm going to put little windows in it if I can. Okay, there's a window. We don't want them too dark. If they stand out too much, I will get rid of them. Let's see where we're at. Okay. Got to put enough of this in to make it believable. I don't want to spend a lot of time because I want to be able to go back and add some other things in here. So, and there's also a little bit of light happening here and there, like on the rooftop and another rooftop. At some point, I just start playing and making stuff up.
Laurel wants to know if you do a value sketch for most of the paintings.
No, I don't.
Abstract.
Every now and then I'll do a little. I have, when I usually do it is if I'm working from more than one piece of reference. Then I will very often do a little value sketch where I'm working from multiple references. So if I'm doing, I think I did a moose a few weeks ago where I used 3 different pieces of reference. Generally, when I do stuff like that, then I will. No, I don't. I do recommend it. I just don't do it. Some of it is, if I know what I'm shooting for, then it's not as important. If I'm experimenting completely, then I will do it. When I was a student, though, let me tell you guys, it's one of the best things that I ever did was value sketches. So buildings back in here, they're different colors.
So you're recommending?
Do I recommend you do? If, truthfully, do anything. If you guys haven't, depends on how much you guys have worked. If you've done a lot of work and you've got some experience behind you, you might not need to. But if not, value sketches are wonderful. Just don't turn it into a finished painting. So I don't want you to lose your enthusiasm in your value sketch. And then when you get into your painting, really kind of slough it off because you've already done it once. So my feeling about value sketches is I think they're great, but I would do them pretty much very as an abrupt, a sketch. Keep that word is very important. Keep that sketch concept. So you're not over refining. Oh, I went way too dark there. That's what happens when I talk. But you want to. You can do a very loose sketch. If you guys recall, I think I did a sketch for the who was it? The guy from Holland. And it's because I was working from black and white and it was a terrible photograph and I could see so I had to really kind of reinvent a lot of structure. And when you have to do that, if you have to figure something out, that's when to use your value sketches, boy. if you have to try and figure out exactly what you're doing. Okay, I'm gonna refine a little bit in this background now. I want to leave myself out the last 5 to go back into the buildings in the foreground. But until then, it's a matter of value matching. Trying to come up with the right violet, kind of blue violet in here. If I go too dark, it pops out. So I've got to really be just about right in there. So where I was being very, very quick in the beginning, at this point, I'm slowing down and I'm becoming, whoops, way too much red into that. I'm trying to become a lot more accurate. I also need to leave a little bit of time. Keep picking up too much red. A little bit of time to hit these treetops. So I've got to kind of divide my time up that I have left. As much as I could do this part of it forever, I won't. I'm going to stand back for a second. It's sitting back there, not as much as I want it to. It just needs more layering. Kind of like some of that thicker paint stuff I got going on there. I think if I were to continue, I would start picking up thicker paint. I'm going to move right to these foreground trees a little bit here. They need work. They need to be. I purposely, when I laid them in, did not go real bright. I think I mentioned that. So I've added a little bit of the green, blue, and we're going to start to really highlight, put some lights on it. Whoa. When I said really lighted, I didn't mean that much. So let's try this. Let's see if this is any better. Yeah. Still could stand some more ochre. Could stand to be warmed up just a little bit. Get some more green. Some more green. Just pull it down to the side. When I say more green, it's because as it goes into shadow, it isn't as bright. And so what I'm using is I'm using a lot more of the sap green into that. So it feels like it's light going into shadow. All right, there's a couple of trees, and I'm going to start with kind of that sap color that overlap this right about here. A little darker. It has light on it too, but I want to start a little dark. There we go. And put some light on them. Light on those trees. Really pretty light too. I'm just almost laying that paint on there right now. I'm going to take some off to the side. I mix the green with a little more raw sienna in it. And that's just so I can get some variations in these greens. So they're not all the same. Just barely letting that tip lay the paint down for me, you guys. Got to get some other little variation in that, a little bit more. It's building's looking a little boring, so I put some darks and give it a little bit more character. Go back down, a little bit of a white on this tree down here. Take some more. That's got a lot of Naples in it this time. Now I want it to stand out against the background. So this is where it gets tricky. I've got to go lighter in the background. And bring a little yellow into it. But we still want it to fade into the tree. So we want some greens. Excuse me, guys. Okay, I'm working with all these greens now. Let's see what we got. A little tree in here. We got top of the tree, front of the tree. The light's coming from there. So most of my light is going to be back in here. I know that. So some of it I can do without even sitting there and over studying this. I mean, I kind of know what's happening. Whoa, way too strong.
He says, bless you.
Huh?
Bless you. Do you sneeze? Can you talk about greens?
Greens?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not as in kale. As in mixing greens.
Mixing greens. Use green. Use a little brown, and the brown will tend to temper the green, meaning it'll dull it down so it's not as intense. Yellows will intensify the color. And now, unless you're using something like a Naples or an ochre. An ochre really kind of is a nice. I love to use ochre with greens. I just think it works really well, and it doesn't let your green get too acidy. The biggest problem that people have with greens is they paint green. They paint like really green, you know, because they think of like emerald green and all these beautiful. And generally, if that is in a painting, it's in there in a very subtle way, not a very strong way. No, so I'm taking yellow. Here's a bright green. Boom. See that? But it's actually too strong for right now, but it's better that I put that in there at this stage than I did earlier. And you can see how all of a sudden you can illuminate something, but you have to sneak up on it. You cannot just power that in there right off the bat. You have to put that in there at the proper time. Always be more timid with your color until the very end, and then go for it and see what happens. And if it stand back right away, if it stands out too much, change it. And always mix different greens. I don't think I could stress that last part enough. Always mix different greens. Never, ever stay with that same green throughout. Just think, I mean, all the different types of greens that you can get. My word, it goes on and on. You can get all kinds of greens. I'm going to add a little bit. I don't like some of these bright lights that I put in. They're standing out too much. So I might just take a clean brush. Don't be afraid. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to mess it up. If it wasn't working that good anyway, who the hell cares if you mess it up? I kind of like it blurred like that, truthfully. And the same with this. You can go over that. Keep moving around. Don't stay in any one spot. It's the other thing about greens. Don't sit there and say, okay, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And you've got to move. You got to move from one area to the other. If you stay in one area too long, I guarantee you'll overwork it, and then you have to try and bring everything else up to that level.
So Laurel wants to know, how do you deal with green grass that is so bright?
You don't paint it that bright. If you do later on. Paint it way too dull in the beginning. Way too dull. Let's say you're painting a golf course. Good example. With bright sun on it. I mean, you're going to have greens like that. I actually have a painting somewhere around here. I don't know if Anna can grab it. It's probably over there. It's a long one of tamales. And it's got a lot of bright greens. And I really took my time. And even now, I'm not sure if I went too far with it. It's a hard greens, they say, theoretically, I've heard this from many people. You may have heard it too. It's one of the most difficult things to paint. I agree with that. It's a long painting on masonite. No, it's not there. It's bigger than that. I might have taken it in the other room. It might be in the other room now, for all I know. See, the background is finally starting to come together. It's taken a long time. It's still not there. It still takes a lot of stuff going on. And I don't want to take away from what I want to do here. I also need to take my little liner right at the end, and there are wonderful little details. There is a pipe, and I get a nice right there, another one back there. It doesn't matter if you paint them light or dark, because if sunlight hits it, it might be light. But a little bit of that, honestly, just takes it and makes it like I did up here, makes it feel complete. Can I find it? Yeah, I don't know where it is. I do have a painting around here with strong greens. It's like that. So,
I see it.
oh, I think Anna found it. It's typical for my studio, which I think I really realized today of all days. As soon as this session is over, I'm going to spend some time and rearrange my studio. So it may look a little different next week. I hope better.
That's what you're talking about, right?
That's the one.
Okay, we'll put it on after.
I will, when we're all done, I'm going to put a painting up with a lot of greens in it. And hopefully I can explain a little bit more about painting greens. And the reason I did it was because it's got a lot of greens in it. And I wanted to see if I could do it. And it's actually one of the more successful, I feel, that I've done with strong greens. All right, now if you guys recall, I said I could, the last minute, and I'm taking the warm white in Naples and white, and I'm going to amplify this part right here even stronger. Just the edge. So I didn't, kind of like what I said on other things, I snuck up on it. I did not try and hit that bright light all at once, but now it's gleaming, maybe even a little more than I want it to, but maybe one of the things I found is a lot of times when I demonstrate, I will exaggerate things more than if I'm doing them on my own time, I should say. So we've got a lot of this already happening. The only thing that I could see is that I could easily, as I'm doing right now, I'm amplifying the strength of light on these trees that are right against the background. Gotta be careful I don't paint the same kind of stroke everywhere. Sometimes just as I get further away, I won't pick at them as much. I can see more interesting variations going on in here. Now I'm going to bring in some more sienna and get some warm, too much. But I wanted some warmer tones in some of those greens down in here. Also, I just noticed on the edge, this building back here is catching just a hint of light. And this rooftop, which I kind of muffed up earlier, goes more like that. And then there's a rooftop, which I did lay in there. I was just a little clumsy with it. And it's right back here and it just sneaks up from behind that building. And it's kind of like that. And so we're starting to get the feel of some variations. A little light here. It's a little warm light. Another one back here. And anywhere else. We got that up there. We got time to put any windows in. Where are we at? I'm just about done. I knew I figured I was going to run a little over because of our technical difficulties at the beginning. Hope it didn't disrupt you as much as it did us. I really still need to put the guys at the Academy of Art that work with us, helping us kind of make this thing look halfway decent. Let us know right away when things aren't working so that we can kind of go in and fix them. So I really need to thank them for that, and to be able to jump in there and fix it when technology screws up. We don't know. We never screw up. Technology screws up. Keep that in mind. So we're feeling that light kind of raking across and giving, but what I'm hoping that you guys get, because I know I didn't carry it as far as I had hoped, primarily due to time, but I'm hoping that you guys can see the concept working, because I probably will go in and put a little bit more time into this background, make it make a little bit more sense, and then post it, just because some of the stuff to build it up appropriately just takes that tedious amount of energy and time that some painters love it. I know painters that love to sit there and I remember when I was at school, I used to be one of these guys too, so I'm not putting them down by any stretch of imagination. A noodler, someone who just loves to go in and noodle on little things, just loves it. And I don't want to say I outgrew it. I got tired of it, I suppose, would be the thing. And all the great paintings I ended up loving that other artists had done were exactly the opposite direction than that. And so those were my heroes, still are. Most of you know the names: John Singer Sargent, Joaquin Sorolla, Anders Zorn, Giacomo Favoretto, who's one of my late comers, but I discovered that, man, am I glad I discovered him. I discovered him several times, but it hit me when I was in Rome, and I was at a museum with at one of my workshops, and right in front of me was, and I went to take a picture of this. It was right in front of me was a friend of mine, Mark Katzman, who's a terrific painter, and he's taking a picture of this Favoretto, and I went up. I started. The more I looked at it, I couldn't get away from it. I just went. Then I immediately had to go out and find a book on him. And this was about 15 years ago, maybe. No, I discovered them before that, but that's when I became enamored. And so all these guys are my heroes, and that's who I look at. And they've influenced a lot of what I do and what I hope to do. And so, and then, you know, you're still you. You're influenced by all these people, but still down deep, you're you. I know that's not profound. I mean, I'm not saying anything that you aren't aware of, but don't be afraid to be you. Let all these guys come through you. Let all these wonderful influences happen. And in the long run, be you. The other thing, and another thing I can't stress enough, I stress it to my students at the Academy constantly. It's hard, it's frustrating, but man, have fun. Have fun. Don't turn it into something that just depresses the heck out of you. Enjoy, learn, grow, all that stuff. It'll all come together. And that I guarantee. I won't guarantee a lot of things, but I guarantee if you keep working at it, you will not be sorry. You'll be happy. And during this particular time with all this stay at home, and, you know, I've said this many times, I feel we artists are very fortunate because other than being outside painting, this is basically what I'd be doing anyway. So I don't think I'm going to carry it much further. I could, just like I can with every week, but can only go so far in this given amount of time. If I took more time, I'd probably end up boring the heck out of you. So what I will say for now is I will say thank you all, but I would like to put up a painting. Someone asked me about greens. So I'm going to put up a painting that's got a hell of a lot more green in it than this. It's right over this. It's not going to hurt it. So people freak when I lace stuff. And you see those strong greens? Those are pretty strong, and they're thick right here at the end. All this was all laid on underneath these darker, grayer greens. And the intensity came up, and I probably could even push it further if I wanted to, but I felt like that was where I needed to stop. But that just gives you an idea of using a lot of greens. The other thing is, to answer your question, look at the variations. A lot of ochres, siennas, umbers back in here. Areas that almost tend to lean a little bit orange. It's all in there. So it's not one big flat green. It never is. And that's my recommendation, is allow your greens to emerge. The strength, the intensity of your green to emerge out of your painting. That's what I kind of want to show you. Now we'll go back to this. And again, I want to thank everybody. It's always fun. If you guys weren't here watching, I probably wouldn't be doing these. And so I'd be painting, but you've forced me into these larger studies. I enjoy it. I enjoy your questions. I love your comments afterwards. I hope you guys get something from each one of these, maybe a little different each time, and are able to apply it to what you do. Because after all, that's what it's all. We're all sharing. We're all sharing. I learn from others. Others learn from me. Thank you again, and happy painting.
Bye, everyone.